know who made it.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Socially Unavailable podcast. Today I'm joined by Jared, a good friend I met a while back. He's here today to talk about his business and photography. How you doing, Jared?
Doing pretty good.
That's awesome. You want to tell a little info about yourself, a little background about yourself?
Yeah, so I run a real estate photography company. I've been doing commercial video and photography since like 2016. I got into photography like kind of right at the end of high school. Just cell phone, Instagram, that kind of thing, just using filters, playing around with it, trying to be artsy, and then picked up a camera in like 2013. And I don't know, I always just kind of messed around with it, and then here I am today, and it just kind of worked out.
Wow, that's awesome. Wow, that long though, that long ago, huh?
Yeah, it's weird. Like I always had like an obsession with watching a lot of YouTubers, like filmmaking YouTubers, and I don't know, like I never thought it was going to go anywhere. I never really even thought that I would be using cameras, but I don't know, I just had an interest in it, I guess, a little bit, and experimented with it and kind of found it to be something I enjoyed.
Wow, that's awesome. So, oh, that was one of the questions. So, what made you really enjoy photography?
Um for me, like I'm very like detail oriented. So the best way I could describe it is more with video. So I love, like, obviously everyone loves music, right? But I love music videos specifically. I've
Mm.
just always enjoyed like the mechanics and the details behind cinematography and like how they get certain shots, and that really appealed to me. Like I can watch the same music video 15 times in a row just to like analyze every detail of it. And so the same kind of applies with photography for me. I've always just been I'm the guy that's gonna like zoom into the photo to look at every detail of it. And so I really just like appreciate, someone that puts effort into it. And I like that there's always a message that can be conveyed through photography. A lot of times there isn't a message. Like a lot of what I do, there's not really a message to shooting pictures of houses sometimes, but there is and there isn't. But that ability to like tell a story within a single image has always been something that kind of like appealed to me, because it's like, a single moment can actually lead to a longer conversation or to something that just holds somebody's attention for longer than it actually even takes to obtain it. So um that's kind of how I started, just being artsy fartsy with it, and then it actually evolved into something more serious. um and yeah, I mean, the art side of it is very fascinating to me, but there's also a strong business element to it as well that really appealed to me as well.
That's awesome. So wait, so when you started, was it photography first or is it video? Because I know you're saying that you enjoy music videos. So did you start video or did you start photography?
Yeah, so maybe this is for a whole nother podcast, but I biked across America. I don't know if you knew that. Um,
Whoa, what?
yeah. So after high school, I just got kind of like really obsessed with cross country cycling. And so from like 2012 to 2013, I was like training for that. And I wanted to document that experience, right? Like I wanted to be able to like, share this cool thing. And I tried to create a nonprofit, and it turned into a whole thing. But um doing that, I bought the camera because I wanted like a camera to document it. And so like I was going to do a lot of filmmaking and stuff, and like the adventure was a success. I did it and everything, and it was fantastic. But I didn't get to really use the camera as much as I thought I would. But it was always something that was just like, sitting in my bedroom at home. So when I wasn't at work or wasn't at college, like I just was, I don't know, trying to make artsy pictures and stuff, and just taking pictures of my cats, or whatever, like outside, like going to a nearby park or something, like just doing, I don't know, whatever, just trying to like figure out something that was, myself, something unique. And I don't know if I can really say it was video or photo first. It kind of all happened at once. It was always something that was just kind of like it's something to do on the side while I was focused on my studies and trying to make money as a job. But yeah, it always just kind of stuck with me. I guess it probably was an equal share of both, but yeah, that's kind of how I got to really my interest started with just buying a camera because it was something I needed for a project. And then it was like, oh, I have this, so I'll just kind of play around with it, and then kind of figured out I like doing it. So
Wow, yo, biking across country, that's insane.
yeah, that's a whole nother topic that I could go into for you if you
Well,
want. But
I mean, if you want to touch a little bit about it, that because that's insane across the country on a bike.
yeah, so the basic details of it is like we started in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, and we finished in Wilsonville, Oregon, which is my original hometown. So it's like a, I think it was like 3,300 miles. So about 100 miles a day, I would say, like on average. Which, if you're going 10 miles an hour, which is basically what I was doing all the time, which is kind of slow actually, but 10 miles an hour for 10 hours a day, that's really not hard. So as long as you're not, if you have no problems with being on your feet all day, it's not bad. So, um, yeah, I
Wow.
mean, my buddy drove. We used my sister's van to as like our support vehicle. So I had my best friend like follow me, and I would just basically meet up with him. He would like leapfrog me to the next town, and then as I come through, if I needed water or something, he'd support me. And then at night we would camp out. We had an air mattress that we'd set up in the back of the van. We'd put all the bags to the front and then sleep in the back. Basically, we would just call churches everywhere we went, like a day in advance, to ask if we could like sleep in their parking lot because they're generally charitable in that sense. And we didn't need much. We just needed a place that we could stay that we weren't going to get like kicked out of for trespassing or something. So yeah, that's pretty much how we did it. We stayed in hotels on the weekend and then camped the rest of the week. But yeah, it took about 40 days.
Wow, 40 days. That's insane. That's cool. I never knew that about you. And it's funny because I saw you posted the other day on
Oh
Facebook.
yeah.
And I thought it was like an upcoming trip. So I'm like, oh, that's
Oh
cool.
yeah. Yeah,
Not
no, I just
knowing.
started. Yeah, that's so like I always look at my Facebook memories like every day. A lot of times I'm deleting stuff because I just look back at how dumb I was back then. But I just look at through and I realize, holy crap, this is my 10-year anniversary of doing that adventure. So I don't know, it started bringing back a lot of memories, stuff that I even forgot about. But um, it
Wow.
it was a fundamental part of my life that it really solidified this mindset that I could basically handle anything that came my way, any challenges I might be facing in my life. It made almost everything seem not intimidating. um I came back with a lot of momentum, like a lot of like inspiration. And I guess you could say like I wanted to do a nonprofit thing where I was gonna have this like Make a Wish Foundation that was sort of like an adventure based program. So I wanted to like focus on like helping kids or teenagers accomplishing their own feats and challenges, and then kind of document that and make like some sort of short form program out of it that would inspire others. I tried to get some cool stuff started with that. We even had some like real conversations with Cabela's to like try and like work the program with them. One of my buddies from gaming over years and years, he lives out in Minnesota, and he was gonna kayak the entire Mississippi River, and like we were planning that project, and then it kind of just fizzled out because we didn't get the sponsorships we were looking for, and I kind of lost some motivation in that. But that project was called Beyond Limits Project, and so I
Oh,
I put it on the
oh.
back burner. Yeah, I kind of put it on the back burner. It's like it's kind of soul crushing, but when your dream doesn't work out, then you have to get a real job and you have to like figure out how to make real money and all that. So, uh, I finished school. I had like a year left of college when I finished my trip. So when I got done with that, um, I was in school for criminal justice, and I thought I was gonna be like a sheriff's deputy or something. I liked the sheriff's, like the whole appeal of a sheriff, an elected position in law enforcement. So I thought that was the route I was gonna go. I went to school for criminal justice. After school, I got jobs working at local parks department for security. And then I ended up working full-time security for I think it's Allied Universal now. It's a security company. It's like one of the largest ones in the country.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're in malls, warehouses and whatnot. They're everywhere. So
Mm-hmm.
I was working in a warehouse for like 3 years, working overnight shifts, stuck sitting in a room staring at security cameras with the air conditioning blowing on me 24/7, and like it was like miserable. And I don't know, after like a year of doing it, I was like trying to like figure out what the heck else I could do, because I was just like beat. That was not the path I wanted to take my life. I kind of saw the characters that I was working with, and I didn't want to like kind of become that. Um, so I started looking for like ways that I can make money. Like, what else could I do? I was like, I only have a degree in criminal justice and an associate's degree. So I was like, it's not really like, I don't know. I didn't feel like I had any real marketable traits. I had been like still kind of messing around with the camera, but not as much. And I was living on my own now, and just trying to figure it out. And somehow I came across first it was affiliate marketing with like Amazon and stuff, right? Like back
Mm.
in like 2016, that was really popping off. I just found it like trying to search for ways to make money. And then affiliate marketing led to social media marketing, and I thought I could do that because that was sort of based around content creation, around photography and video. And I was like, oh, okay, like that's something I'm okay at. I like doing it. So I'd been asked by a previous company that I worked for to do some photos for them because they knew that I like doing pictures and all that. And so I did a couple projects here and there, and then I started kind of trying to create a brand around that. So that's when Beyond Limits Project became Beyond Limits Productions, and it
Mm.
switched from a nonprofit to a business. There's still two separate entities, but yeah. So my focus started shifting towards that, and I guess it became less about inspiring others, more about just trying to survive, trying to pay the bills. So I started trying to like focus on, like how can I make money doing this? I really did think the social media management thing was going to be like it for me, but I kind of ended up leaving my warehouse job like way too soon. I didn't have enough clients. I had about half the income that I needed, if that. Looking back at it now, it's probably like a quarter of the income I actually needed for like regular customers coming back every month. So I left my job like way too ambitiously, and basically spent all of like 2017 and 2018, or I guess it was probably by this time, it was actually 2018, 2019, just starving. It was the worst. Like, just like I must have looked so desperate to people. Like, I was just like, I don't know. I don't recommend, don't quit your day job until your side hustle is like literally like making more money, because it was, I look back at it and laugh now, but yeah, that was definitely the most stressful like period of my life. And I ended up at the end of 2019, my one and only consistent client was basically like, they brought me to a like a brunch place, a cafe, and they sat me down. They were like, "Look, this isn't working," and they were right. It wasn't working. And they were like, "You can either come work for us in house full time, and we're gonna give you, you'll do the stuff that you've been doing, but we're gonna give you other tasks, administrative stuff, and just work you into our company a little bit more. So obviously, it makes sense for me to be a full time staff, or we could just like let you go." And I was like, "Well, if you let me go, I'll basically just starve because I got nothing else going on."
Yeah.
So they brought me on full time, and at that moment, they hired me. And then, I mean, I had for the first time like broken down crying to my mom because I was like, I can't pay my rent. Like, I've never been in that position where I hit like my rock bottom. So, I had to borrow some money from my mom just to pay my rent that month. But thankfully, the job started, and my first paycheck, I immediately took a bunch of that and put it to my maxed out credit card that I had for with Wells Fargo. I put the money in, and then the next day, the account wasn't accessible on my app anymore. And then I get a call from the bank, or I called them, and they're like, "Yeah, we're moving you to collections." And it was like, it got real serious real quick, right? So I had like, maybe 5K isn't a lot to some people, but to me it was a lot of money because I made like 20K in like 2019. So I was like super in debt, but thankfully I just got a full-time job. I then got a job at a car wash on the side, so I was working 7 days a week, and out of nowhere, my commercial photography and video business, who had me myself had never shot houses, had never really done real estate. I advertised it, but I never had clients that were ordering it. Um, Out of the blue, I just had a realtor ask me to come take some photos of a house, and they liked it. And then like the next week, they had me do the inside and outside of a house, and then they had me do a couple more. And then all of a sudden, it was like I was working not just two jobs, but basically three jobs, because I was working whatever, like 7 to 5 during the week, and then in the evenings, I was going to take photos of houses, and then on the weekends, I was working whatever, a morning shift and also an evening shift, alternating days at the car wash. And so outside of doing that, like in the same day, I would also go shoot more houses. So I was working like 100 hours a week. It was insane, but I
Wow.
crushed that debt I had in like five, maybe 5 months. So yeah, yeah,
Wow.
it was like a grand a month that I put into it, which now actually seems like even more obtainable. But it was like that was a huge deal to me when I finally like released myself from that debt situation I'd been in.
Wow. So you really like grinded and
Oh yeah.
wow, working all that. So during this time, you kind of faced a lot of adversity and challenges. And how did you continue to like maintain the drive for everything at that point?
Um, well, I really do kind of attribute it to like my biking adventure. I don't know what to call it. It was a phase of my life, but I mean that really solidified this whole like nothing is impossible type mindset. Before that, like in high school, I was in Civil Air Patrol. For those that don't know, it's kind of like Boy Scouts, but it's actually part of the Air Force. So that kind of like was this whole like problem solving, like can do attitude, like quasi military, you know, program that really like kind of inspired me in the first place to really like take a hold of my life. And then the biking really like made me feel like nothing's impossible. So when I got to these points in my life that were the hardest things I'd ever faced, I was going through some relationship issues at the time too that were really traumatic, and like it just it just was always this like feeling in the back of my head that was like just keep going, like there is a way that this will work out eventually. um it's not too bad, like nothing is ever like the end of like all your problems, like there are not nothing is like gonna like totally like make you fail, like there's always an option out there, right? Like there's always going to be a way that you can succeed. You just have to really believe that it's there, and you'll start to see your options. And for me, like, I realized like, okay, like I'm not cutting it on my own as a self-employed person. And I think a lot of photographers can probably relate to that. I think a lot of photographers and probably other types of artists. I mean, the term starving artist is like literally what I was. Um, you know, I was eating like rice and beans and hot dogs every day for like a couple of years because like I couldn't
Oh
afford
man.
anything.
Yeah.
But and I was chasing down checks and just trying to make enough money to keep the utility companies and my landlord off my back. But um yeah, I mean, like I had to learn a lot about like being resilient on my own and like I don't know, I just never lost at least a little sliver of hope. And I saw other people that were succeeding, and I didn't think I was ever going to be like one of these like major like people. Like there's people like Peter McKinnon, for photographers out there that know him. He's like a major YouTube celebrity when it comes to like photography and video and content creation. And like I used to watch guys like that, and I was like, I don't need to be somebody like that who's probably a millionaire, or a millionaire with assets at least. I don't
Yeah.
need to make $1 million, but I need to make enough to survive. And so when things actually started working out with the real estate photography, that's when I realized if you lock on to a niche of photography, and I'm sure this goes to a lot of different art forms, you have to like lock into a niche that is actually in demand, right? Like you have to find something like, I never wanted to be like a photographer that did weddings or baby pictures or kids graduation photos. I really never wanted to deal with that. I didn't like the pressure. Um, I didn't want to deal with kids in general. So I was like, I didn't think I'd have the patience for it. So I tried to focus on like commercial stuff. But then I realized like in those first couple of years of my business, commercial photography, like that title commercial photography, that's really like you're gonna struggle to find clients if that is your number one description of your business. I say it now so that in this context, to your viewers, it might kind of rein them into like what type of photography I'm into. But if you really want to know like what I do, it's real estate photography and real estate video. And when
Mm,
I figured out that if you go all in on one of these things and you start to look at all the needs that your client has regarding anything I do with a camera, when you start to build like a menu of services that fit all those needs, you start to look at the rest of the industry, see what other people are doing, and you model your business like that. Um, that's when you're going to find success, or at least that for me is where I found success. Because before that, I think if you don't display a level of confidence and knowledge and expertise in what you're doing, you're going to really struggle to have clients that have confidence in you because they can see it right off the bat. So when I was just this guy that was like, hire me to do some photos. Oh, I have a drone, by the way. I'll take pictures for you. Like, I didn't really know what I was doing. And I think that's probably what deters people from wanting to work with me. So, um, yeah, I kind of fell into it because I had real estate agents that reached out to me before I ever really tried to reach out to any of them. And because of that, I started to model my business to meet their needs. And it just kind of grew on its own. Like, I did, I think, about $11,000 in my first year of 2020, which again, I was a full time employee for a company at that time, making like 30, maybe like 35K at the most with all my overtime. And so, and again, I was working at a car wash too when I started doing this. I shot maybe 50 homes that year, made about whatever I said, like 10, $11,000. Um, I was working like 100 hours a week. I didn't even know that was physically possible, but oh man, like for like 2 years, I feel like I slept no more than 6 hours a night. And like it was rare that I could sleep in or not set an alarm clock. And yeah, I quit the car wash job as soon as I paid my debts off. So I alleviated some of that stress, but I mean, even through 2021, like I just worked my butt off. I was nonstop working, and I was just motivated because I started seeing like the numbers, and I started seeing how because I had built a business model that was curated to like help clients that trusted me, and I was starting to attract some new clients. I was like, oh man, this is serious. Like 11K is nothing. I can easily see how this for me is going to make enough money to survive. I just knew it was going to take time. So I kept working my full-time job, and I was able to start making more money. And the second year I think I did 19,000. And like that was mind blowing to me. Like I bought a whole new computer. I was able to buy brand new latest and greatest equipment, which now kind
Wow.
of would intimidate me to even do because I dropped like 10K on cameras like in a month. It was awesome. But uh yeah, like that really, like having a full-time job while growing this side hustle and reinvesting everything I had back into the hustle to like improve my quality, improve my efficiency. Even now, like this year, I just started using a software that allows people to order online, to schedule with me and book. And like, I mean, all my clients are like, "Oh my God, this is amazing. You should have done this years ago." And I'm like, I know. I don't know why I waited around. Probably because I was so busy like scraping to get by that I didn't
Hmm.
even think about these things. But knowing what I know now is like if you build a scalable system that you can just keep repeating
Yeah.
as you get new clients, the system continues to work the way it's supposed to. You
Hmm.
don't feel overwhelmed, and you just see more money coming in, and it gets really, really fun when you start to see it working out. So I
Yeah.
made 19 grand, and then 2022 I made 29,000, and then last
Wow.
year I made about 45. So it's just been,
Wow.
yeah, it's just been growing. Like, and I quit my job in May 2022. So that
Okay.
year I made about 10 grand from the job, in the first couple months before I quit. And then I I still made 29,000 that year. So it was enough to like kind of offset it.
Yeah.
Um, I was kind of like just scraping by. Like honestly, I probably should have held out at least 1 year and then quit just so I had like a little more buffer area.
Yeah.
But I was ready to be out and kind of doing my own thing because I started seeing like how much potential there was for me.
Yeah. Wow, that's and so I know. So you said they kind of like fell into it and like kind of just started doing it on a side. But when did you like realize that you really want to start this business and start Beyond Limits Production?
So that definitely came like back when I was working in a warehouse and I was like, I just didn't like what I was doing. I kind of always imagined I'd work for myself. Like my dad has pretty much been self-employed most of his life. Like he had
Mm,
a print shop like way back, like up until I was about 10. Then he sold the business and changed his career path. But I mean, that really like, I guess stuck with me. And it wasn't like, I didn't like directly envision myself being like my dad, but this like entrepreneurial like bug just kind of was like with me all the time. Like it's not like I don't respect bosses or something, but I just wanted to do my own thing. Like I've just never like felt like I'm just one of the crowd, you know?
yeah.
And I'm sure like most creatives can relate to that. Like, you know,
Mm,
to some degree, like you feel drawn to like do something that's unique and to kind of find your own identity. And I mean, I never like truly thought back then when I was starting what I was starting, I never thought it was like going to be a sustainable like lifestyle. I never thought, oh, I'd make enough money to like truly survive and thrive at some point, hopefully. But um, it just ended up working out that way. But it took a lot of lessons to get to this point. I had to learn
mm.
a lot about business to get here.
I can imagine both aspect of like learning learning more about cameras, angles, lighting, all those, as well as you said the business side. So I can imagine the amount of information and time it took to just learn and grow yourself in those in like that aspect of just learning both sides. Um and now how has it been for you, right? Because it's different shooting commercial slash retail media versus capturing media. Like how for you, how has it been for like shooting commercial and retail versus your own personal enjoyment?
Um, I mean, every once in a while I do something like artsy, like just I don't know. I'm not really like artsy creative. Like I'm not gonna go out and make like cool like abstract stuff. Like I enjoy shooting a bit of architecture, like street photography. I like nature photography. I don't even think I'm that much of like a nature nut, but living in the Poconos, Northeast Pennsylvania, like there's so many like parks and trails and Delaware Water Gap is like a 5 minute drive from me. So like I'll drive over there and a good 40-minute walk and you get to like some really amazing views and stuff. So I've really started, especially recently, to just get more into like nature photography. And that's fun because there's like no pressure to it. It's just, it's like to me that's just kind of like experimenting, right? Like that's just kind of figuring out like, well, what if I shot it like this? What if I tuned my settings this way? What if I did something different with my editing style? Like that's where you get to play with photography. Um Whereas real estate, like I have to fit the needs of my clients, and that comes above all else. I think sometimes in the photography world, at least, I think a lot of times photographers kind of have that backwards and they think they're going to go be creative and they're going to kind of do it on their own, and I'm no exception. Like when I started, I ignored like I there's like a plethora of knowledge available to you for free on the internet about
Mm-hmm.
how to shoot real estate photography, and I kind of ignored it all when I started. I really didn't even think to look for it, which is funny because I spent I'm trying to think, like I mean from like 2009 maybe, like when I was in high school I was watching those YouTubers
Yeah.
mostly for cinematography and video creation, and I went from doing that to just kind of like getting into photography, but I kept coming back to YouTube to learn more and more about how to do it.
Mm.
So I'm very self-taught, but if I was able to go to like the high school in town and just go speak to like my 2009 or 2010 Jared, who was in a photography class, but I had, mind you, at the time I didn't really have an ambition to be a business owner.
Mm-hmm.
But if I was able to go back and like speak to someone like myself back then and be like, hey, you want to be a creative, you want to be an artist, you want to do your own thing, that's cool. Take some photography classes,
Mm.
but above all else, you need to take some business classes. You need to take some coaching and leadership classes. You need to, read books. You need to learn about like how to win friends and influence people or whatever it's
Yeah.
called. I read that book and a couple others that were very much like business and cap capital capitalism related, I guess is the best way to put it. I don't know, like anything business related, you have to understand like a bit of the psychology in terms of like trading value and services and all that, but
Yeah.
like it's so crucial. Like if you don't want to be like desperately trying to make just barely enough money to survive, number one, don't quit your day job. Like literally keep working your full-time job until you can safely migrate from one thing to the next without, you know, the fear of not being able to pay all your bills. But
True.
definitely put your time and energy into actually learning about business, because it's easy enough to go work for somebody else and not have
Yeah.
to think about that stuff. But if you really want to be independent, you got to learn how to like take care of yourself. And you can't really do that without, some of that knowledge,
100%.
and just people skills, like just understanding how to talk to people, how to
Yep.
relate to them, how to win them over is like number one to me. Is like
Mm-hmm.
you have to know like how to be able to communicate and to make a sale without it feeling like you're just a cashier at the at the front of the grocery store. Like this is, it's much more, it's much deeper. Like there's a lot more
Yeah.
to it. So I would totally recommend the kids that are like thinking about this sort of thing to like
Mm.
seriously take some business classes, some entrepreneurial based courses, or read some books. There's a ton of books out there,
True.
or audiobooks or whatever, but just you
Something.
gotta know that you have that skill set, because you can learn photography on the side. Like I'm 100%, well, not 100%. I did take a photography class in high school. I just never thought I would do anything with it. But, I would say I'm like 99% self-taught, because I did spend so much of my free time learning the mechanics of photography, learning about composition and lighting and all that stuff. And
Yeah.
that's really like, that I would say is secondary to understanding business.
Mm. Wow. So I actually, like, I understand with your line of work, you're doing it with houses and everything. I understand the business aspect of it. Well, no, I really didn't think that much business aspect going to photography, but your line of work, I would understand, because like you said,
Yeah.
just branching yourself out, talking to these people. And it's funny that you said you didn't want to do the whole weddings and kids photos. I think and that's not for everybody. Some people like that stuff,
Yeah.
some people don't. But it's cool that you're able to find what you like and what you enjoy, and kind of just throw yourself into it. But so now I want you kind of like take us through the process, like what it takes to go to these houses and take photos. Like what items do you tend to bring with you?
Yeah, so when I have a booking or a day with multiple shoots on my calendar, like basically for me, I'm looking at my calendar at least a day in advance, so I know like, okay, what do I got to do tomorrow? Make sure all
Mm.
that equipment is charged up, so I'm not like scrounging for batteries or whatever on the way. So I'm always charging my equipment overnight. Um, my typical shoots are generally photo and video. Sometimes I'll
Mm.
do like a virtual tour, a lot of floor plan scans, but those are done with phones. So most of the time, I'm looking at my camera bag now, which is on another desk beside me. So I have two cameras that I bring with me. I actually need to get second wide angle lens, so I don't have to be swapping stuff around. But I'm grabbing my cameras, um, packing up my bag, making sure I have all my batteries, making sure I got fresh memory cards, wiped out, previous jobs on them, so it's not, so there's no fear of running out of space while I'm on the job, because you're not going to sit there and want to delete a bunch of photos.
No,
Um,
definitely not.
Making sure my drone's charged, got my controller and all that. Grabbing a second drone, and if there's something real risky that I know I'm going to have to fly in case I crash one and need a backup. Um,
Oh, wow.
I keep the tripod in the car, so it's less stuff that I have to carry out the door. Grab my gimbal. Then I head out for the day. You know, you head to that first shoot. Just Google Maps to get there, and then usually the first thing you do when you get there is knock on the door, unless you know it's going to be empty. Realtors will give you a combination for their locks or for a key or whatever to tell you where the key's hidden,
Mm.
so you can get inside, turn all the lights on, open the windows, open the blinds and all that, and then you just go to work. You just grab your camera, your tripod, and I don't know, put on an audiobook or whatever, and it's like super relaxing actually, like especially when there's
Wow.
nobody home. When nobody's there and it's like an empty house and you're just
Yeah.
by yourself, like it's I work
Uh,
pretty high pace, like actually kind of just coming from like working in landscaping that really taught me to like keep myself moving fast.
yeah.
And so like that time of my life like really just taught me to like not slow down. So I do like I'll work up a sweat like running around the house, honestly. But at the same time, like there's nobody telling you what to do. There's no like, it's very laid back. So you just go from room to room taking pictures, and I know my angles that I got to get. Um, Sometimes it's like a
It-
puzzle, you walk into
yeah.
a room and it's like, it's not a traditional square room, or there's multiple doors or some other elements that you don't normally see. Like
Yeah.
80% of houses basically have the same types of rooms.
Yeah.
So when you run across something that's like a different style, or like you go to a bathroom and there's like mirrors on every side, and then you're like, where can I where
Yeah.
can I stand where I'm not going to see my own reflection? Or like you go to a kitchen and it's got like a weird island in the center that kind of like obstructs your normal angles. Like that's where it's like a fun little puzzle, because you have to find an angle that's appealing to the eye.
Hmm.
Um, you have to make sure your camera's level and straight and all that. But like you're trying to find these angles that make sense, that are going to look good. And at first it'll definitely slow you down when you're new. Like you'll take probably much longer than I do now, but I've done like almost 1,000 homes at this point. So for me it's like I go into a house, and even when it's a weird angle, like I just trust my instincts because I've done it so many times that I can very quickly decide on like what's going to work best for me when I get into that space. So
Mm.
I mean, it's just fun. Like it's fun to like just figure it out, to like just
Yeah.
find what works, take those pictures, come home. I used to edit myself. I wasn't really much good at editing, honestly. So I outsourced that to somebody else who, number one, I don't have time to edit as many pictures anymore just because I shoot so many homes. I'd be working till like 2 or 3 a.m. every night if I was doing that, because
Oh
I'm
yeah.
still editing videos. Like I'm still editing videos from Friday because I was out Friday and Saturday just shooting
Wow.
nonstop. So I have a lot that I'm working on, but it's just a fun process. It's you bring your camera in there, you shoot what you got to shoot, and you turn all the lights off, you lock the door, and you head on to the next one. But it's like it's so
Wow.
peaceful, especially like I can't wait for summer. Like we're
Yeah.
really close to it, but just be driving around with my windows down midday. You're cruising around town. You can take your own time. You go to these homes. There's nobody around. It's quiet. It's empty. The neighborhood, the streets dead because everyone's at work. So
Wow.
you're just out there doing your thing, enjoying the sunshine, living your best
That
life. It's
wow,
like
that sounds so nice. That sounds so nice and peaceful, man.
it is.
um, now, quick question about the mirrors, because I did see you posted on your story the other day. You went into the bathroom and you had mirrors on both sides.
Oh
How
yeah.
how did you shoot? How did you shoot that one?
So that was crazy because it was kind of a tight corridor, anyways. There's a lot of houses have these bathrooms where it's this tight, narrow thing like under a staircase, where there's a mirror to one side and the toilet on the other. In this scenario, it's a tight space, but there's a mirror on one side and a mirror on the other side. There's actually two sinks, so it's like it wasn't even attached to like the primary bedroom. So I don't really understand like why you want two sinks in the same space, like for the kids to all share or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you got mirrors back to back. So if you're in the room, like it's like this infinity thing looking across. I just ended up doing like a corner angle, doing my best to minimize how much of the camera you'll see in the shot without getting like the actual door frame in the shot. So like you have your door frame, and then here's my camera, and I'm just like barely peeking around the edge of it. So I just did like one of these diagonal things. And actually sometimes the mirrors work to your advantage, because instead of getting two angles in a really tight bathroom to show here's your sink and then here's your shower on the other side, which is very common, you
Mm.
just take the picture of the sink because the sink's got a mirror and you can see the shower in it. so you don't even need to take another angle. So that's kind of how I solve some of those problems. But I mean, you really like when you get into those weird, unique scenarios. It's a little fun puzzle, a little thinking game, a little bit of geometry. But um, worst case scenario, you just use a little Photoshop and you have to remove yourself. You try to do your
Oh,
best to avoid that though. Like it's definitely easier most of the time to make sure that the camera picture you're taking, like the photo you're taking in the moment, is not going to require photoshopping versus just take the picture quickly and then go home and photoshop it, because
mm,
it could take you like 2 minutes to like just move, like trying to think like a garden hose or something that's like coiled up by the front door, like to just
yeah,
drag that, like run and drag that around the back corner of the house versus try to Photoshop that out and like deal with all the intricate details of it.
yeah.
Like sometimes it's just easier to do that. So you can't be afraid to get dirty at times too. You're gonna be grabbing some stuff that you don't expect to grab, and going into spaces that you don't expect, like
Yeah.
crawl spaces, dark areas. Like it's not standard that I shoot like a crawl space, but occasionally you get requested to. Or the most common thing for me right now, especially with all the rain, is having to walk through a lot of mud, because you still need to get
Mm,
the same angles of a house that you would get for any other house. But sometimes backyards are really muddy, so
yeah, yeah.
bring in a second pair of shoes or boots to wear just so you can deal with the mud, so you can still get the angles you need, like that sort of thing. But I mean, the job is like, I couldn't ask for a more relaxing way to live. Like, I'm
Wow.
just so thankful that I'm in this position now where I'm not stressing as much as I used to with everything in my life. Like, I used to work overnight shifts. I used to be on my feet
Mm,
all the time. I used to just be work to the bone, and now it's like
yeah.
I still work. Like I definitely put in more hours than most people do for your day to day or your week to week, work routine. But
Yeah.
it's like, is it really work if you enjoy what you're doing? So
Exactly. And there you go. Is it really work? No, it's not.
yeah, yeah.
um now you mentioned like using a drone and everything. How do you alternate between drone and camera? How do you mix in the drone?
So, I mean, the photographies are pretty self-explanatory. Like, you just take pictures with the drone, and then you put them in the same collection. And half the time, you can't tell if it's a drone picture, if it's like below tree line. But a lot of times you're taking drone photos 10 feet off the ground because you don't have a ladder when you're out there, anyways. So
Yeah.
you just need to get a little bit higher so you can get a squared up image of a house. Um, Video is a lot of fun to use a drone. I love doing drone with my videos because there's no better way to showcase like the landscape of the home, where the home sits geographically. Like, since I live in the Poconos, we have Delaware Water Gap, which is obviously a big gap in the mountains. You have Wind Gap, you have Camelback Mountain, the big ski resort. Um, there's a multitude of like huge like landmarks around us, right?
Yeah.
So with the drone, it's always fun to like find those big landmarks in the distance and like try to like tie them in, whether it's through the pictures or the video. But it's fun with the
Wow.
video, especially like if there's lakes around too. That's another big one because there's so many lakes, there's so many communities built around these different lakes. So I love to like fly the drone over the water, or like just near it at least, to be able to be like, hey, here's this beautiful lake, here's this beautiful scene. Now I'm gonna zoom in and go fly over to the house, so
Wow.
that the potential buyer has this like this concept of like, oh, I get to live really close to this lake, or oh, I'll see the mountains in the background, or whatever. Like, it's fun to
Wow.
be able to like kind of, I guess, like translate like the location itself to video in a way that's like more fun and attention grabbing, I guess, the best way to put it.
Yeah, and I mean, if you were to send me photos, or if I was looking at photos and to see that, yeah, I'd be like, wow, that's awesome. On the lake? Oh yeah, I could. I'm interested in this house. Yeah, that's awesome. Now, how did you kind of get introduced to droning, and how did you like incorporate
Oh man.
fully into your uh
So
job
drone
business?
almost came before anything else. It's funny, like,
Oh,
but I don't even remember, like, I don't remember a specific event or something that like sparked like my interest in drones. I just know like when DJI started becoming like huge, like even before like their Mavic foldable drones, like when it was just those big white ones, big square white ones, the Phantoms. Like,
yeah.
I didn't have one, but I was like, man, that'd be so cool to have. I didn't have money for it, right? Like,
Uh huh.
I couldn't afford that sort of thing at the time, and like I saw like the potential and what you could do with them. I saw some FPV videos, and I think I had seen some, probably because some of the YouTubers I watch had drones, and I
Yeah.
saw how they were utilizing them, and it was like, oh man, I gotta get one of those. Like,
Yep. Yep.
so I had worked a deal with a previous employer, um, who had brought me on full time. They were like, you need a drone. Like, we need a drone to market what we do as a business. And I was like, okay, well, I definitely will get one. Since you're contracting me to work with you, like I would definitely get one for you, but it's going to take a while. I don't have the finances to get it.
Yeah.
And so we came to an agreement, actually a very generous agreement for them, where they agreed to buy the drone, and with the condition I was allowed to use it for my own business as well, so
Oh
long as I
wow.
worked for them. So when I quit working for them, I had to return the drone.
Yeah.
Now I had to pay for my own license and everything. You had to go get a Part 107 license, and
Mm.
that was back in like 2017. It was brand new. Like, all the regulations about drones were like really, really new at the time.
Yeah.
I had to go to a flight school down in the Lehigh Valley, at an airport, to like literally go take a test. And so that was really interesting. Like, I always kind of had like an interest in aviation. Like, um, I mean, even before I was in Civil Air Patrol, I loved playing Flight Simulator on the computer, Flight Simulator X.
Yeah.
Like, that was my thing. So like I had a lot of knowledge about like aeronautical maps, sectional charts. I understood airspaces and all that stuff. So
Wow.
when it came time to like take the test, like I basically just binge watched a bunch of study guides on YouTube. um and I still, to this day, like I'll give people a link to my playlist of like study guides so that they can do the same thing just to get the license. But then you got to go to the place to take the test, and then you get your license, and it's literally just like a plastic driver's license. Doesn't have your picture on it, but it's cool. I have a copy of it here. I'm trying to think where it is. It's tucked into my wallet. So it says like, so it's like a FAA license. It's pretty sweet.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah,
dope.
I'm trying to think if there's anything I shouldn't share on here.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's cool. Like, it's like legit, like FAA. I guess it's technically a certificate. I don't know. It's a hot button issue on whether or not we're considered pilots. Um, but yeah,
Yeah,
it's fun.
definitely.
Like, because to some degree it's just a toy, and there's definitely like times where I'm out at a shoot and I'm like, I mean, it's an expensive toy. Like,
Yeah.
my drones, like, I mean, once you buy all the batteries and stuff like that, I mean, you're easily spending over $1,000. Some of the newer ones you're spending like 2, 3 thousand, maybe more,
Yeah.
to do, even just to do what I do in my industry. And then, from there, like, you jump up to another tier of like commercial drones, and you're spending 15 grand on a drone without a camera attached. You just got to get the drone, then you can
Jump.
buy the cameras, and like that's thousands more. So like, there's definitely like levels to it.
Yeah.
And real estate's not the most serious thing. Like, I've dabbled in like 3D scanning and like a bunch of other things you can do with drones.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's definitely like out of my league in some ways, but it's really fun, like, to know, the process behind it. It's been really exciting to like kind of actually get my own hands on one. And I've had maybe 3 drones, no, 4 drones at this point.
Wow.
I've only smashed one of them. Um,
Only one?
so I really have a good flying record.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been into it since 2017. Yes, I've crashed a drone in a way where it fell or it hit something and it
Yeah.
crashed into the ground. I've even crashed it into my own body, which
Yeah.
sucks. But
Oh, oh.
um, like, the drone didn't break, and that's the
Yeah.
moral of the story. Like, as long as it didn't break, right, then it doesn't really matter. But I know, like, every time I go to a house shoot, like, a neighbor will come out and be like, "Oh, cool drone! I have
Yeah.
one. Oh, I flew mine into the side of my house or something," and they tell me. Everyone always has to like relate by telling me a story about how they crashed their drone.
Yep.
But like, yeah, I've only like crashed. I mean, I've crashed a couple, but I only had one that broke, and
Wow.
so that one I actually have crashed twice. The poor thing. If you want to see it.
The poor thing.
Here, this is hilariously pathetic. This is the drone,
Oh, snap.
right?
Oh.
So
What did it crash into?
So the first time I crashed it, my wife was driving my car. We were out in Iowa visiting my dad, and it's like backcountry roads out there. The roads are gravel and everything. It's actually beautiful because it's green landscape for all the fields and stuff, and then
Yeah.
the roads are like a white, clean gravel. So it just looks
Ooh.
like immaculate. It's beautiful. So it's like I always bring my drone anytime I go out to visit my dad.
Yeah.
Always bring my cameras and stuff. So I was trying something new, which is uh, flying the drone while my wife is driving the car. You're not legally allowed to fly a drone and be driving. You have to be a passenger in the
Passenger.
car to
Okay.
be able to do it. So I was in the passenger seat. She was driving, and I was following the car. And I don't know, we were going like I was at like max speed, and I was getting low to the ground, and the road was actually kind of going uphill. So like the drone just I
Oh.
looked up for like a second, and then next thing I know, the drone like hit the ground. It was like flipping and spinning in the air. Then it crashed down. I had
Oh
to.
snap.
The good news is you could buy replacement parts, right? So the only thing that
Oh.
broke that time was the camera. So I just bought a whole new camera for like I think it was like $300, but it was cheaper to do that than to order a whole new drone
Yeah.
or send my current one in to get like repaired because I needed it pretty much right away for work.
Mhm.
So, I fixed it that time. And then the next thing I learned about drones was that when it tells you that you've maxed out the motor speed, that's not a good thing. And you shouldn't continue to fly drones as fast as humanly possible because apparently you can blow the motors on a drone by just flying
Wow.
it too fast, too hard all the time. So I
Really?
used to get like real speedy and like aggressive with how I would fly for real estate
Uh-huh.
because I know the angles that I need. I know I got to go take a picture from this corner. I got to go to this corner. Got to go to the
Yeah.
back. So I would zip around in sport mode real fast. And sure, it would constantly come up with that warning about like you're maxing out your motor speed. And then one time, the drone just started spiraling out of the sky. And then I realized it said motor failure, and when it landed, that was the end result. It
This
was just like a little rag doll. So
wow.
don't fly your drones too fast. That's what I
Don't
learned.
don't fly them too fast. Well, I didn't know that you can actually max them out. That's crazy. But it's good to know. Now it's good to know, and everyone listening, it's good to know. Don't fly it too
Yeah,
fast. Um, how do you think like droning and using your drone enhances the final media product of what you're trying to achieve?
I think like especially in my industry, it's essential because without it, like you can't convey the big picture. I mean,
Mm,
movies even before drones were a thing, like in the world of cinematography and like Hollywood, I mean, they use helicopters, they use planes, whatever they needed. You can't really like capture a location without some sort of real wide angle perspective to be able to show like where does it sit amongst other things,
yeah,
your landscape, where does your property lines end, where does your house sit adjacent to other houses or adjacent to a lake or nearby attractions. You need to be able to showcase that. So and I can't really speak for all industries but or genres even for video and photo, but in my industry, like it's like basically a requirement. Like I don't really know many guys that don't have a drone.
yeah.
Like you basically need to have a drone. Now it's not always like I don't not every job do I get asked to do drone photos on. Sometimes the houses don't need it or don't the agents don't want it because the
Hmm.
home maybe is not, totally up to par. It doesn't look so great. But um, you definitely need to have one because more often than not, you're going to get asked to take some drone photos and videos. So
Yeah.
study up, get that Part 107, and save some money and buy a drone and don't crash it.
Don't don't
be,
crash it.
be smart with it. Like I've always been very procedural with how I used it. Like, because it is like a toy in a sense. A lot of people look at it like a toy. Um, but I have my like mental checklist I do every time I go to fly. Like even when I first get to a house, when I'm walking around, like if the homeowner's there and he's giving me a tour around his house, when we go to the backyard and stuff, I'm looking up at all the tree branches. I'm trying to find pockets in the trees where I can put the drone and safely not be touching any branches. I'm looking for power lines. I'm just aware of all these things. I'm I care about the weather. I care about, is it raining? Is it windy? Like those
Yeah.
are all important things to me so that I make sure I'm not like gonna, have an issue. So
Yeah.
that's pretty much how I've avoided. And I would say generally I don't take a lot of risk with the drone. Like I'm not trying to like fly it through a window or anything crazy. I know people that do that,
Y-
but it's
Yeah.
not worth it. Like unless you have like an FPV drone,
Yeah.
especially one that has like guards, like little plastic protectors around the propellers and stuff, so that
Hmm.
because like I don't want the liability of breaking a window or hurting somebody or something, anyways.
Yeah.
Um, but I'd rather just like fake fly it to the door and then cut to a clip inside the house that I'm using like my camera
Oh.
gimbal. So like people, I swear I do get this like once every like 3 to 6 months now. I still get this request to fly the drone in the house like I did on a previous house, and I'm like I never flew my drone in anyone's house. I just use my gimbal and my big camera inside so I can walk through very steady. And I think people just assume it's a drone because it's so steady, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't take that kind of risk, and it's kind of unnecessary.
No, yeah, of course. And it's funny because I've seen those type of videos with the drones where they're flying it through everything. And yeah, did you have you ever actually thought about using one of those or no?
Yeah, so I've actually looked into it a lot. So FPV drones up until recently, yeah, you could buy like pre-assembled, but it seemed like it was mostly a thing that people do where they build their own drones. Usually it's like a small kit, and you can swap what kind of motors you want. You can get like much higher quality, like higher performing, components to put on it, like building a computer or modifying your car. You can do a whole lot of things to it to make it how you want it. Um, but up until recently, like there wasn't like an FPV drone that
Mm,
had a lot of the same qualities of like a DJI, uh, commercialized drone, and
yeah,
the qualities being like autopilot, like the ability, like if I let go of my controller, the drone just stays where it's at. It just hovers. It's frozen in its space. So
that's
you
nice.
don't have to like it's not gonna like just fall to the ground. It's not gonna flip over. It's not gonna just run off into the sunset and you'll never see it again. Like if I lose signal to my drone, like if I fly it far away, if I lose signal, it's gonna stop. It's gonna go up higher into the air to a predetermined altitude, so it's above trees, and then it's gonna fly back towards me. And it's either gonna come back and land where it took off from, or within a foot of it, or it's at least gonna get close enough that I regain connection to it and can continue to fly it.
Wow.
FPV drones, I don't think they have any of those features. So um DJI, they're like the Apple of the drone world. They make basically all the most successful commercial
Yeah.
drones out there.
Mm-hmm.
They just came out with their own FPV drone, and I mean there's a lot of naysayers to it because it's not like what the other guys use, but I mean it comes with like hardened built-in propeller guards, so you don't have to worry about chopping your fingers or
um.
breaking something in a house. And it's a very stable platform. It'll fly smoothly. So I've thought about getting one of those for like doing the insides of the house, but ultimately like I can't justify it because I love using my gimbal and my actual like Canon cameras. Like
Yeah.
I'd rather fly or film with those indoors and outside for the
Yeah.
most part. If I don't have to use the drone for video, sometimes I don't, just because I think the quality is always better from the big cameras.
Yeah. Of course. And you have kind of almost more control of them too.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely like you have I would say a better range of like motion you can do with it. Number one, because you're not afraid that you're gonna hit something. Um,
True.
but like hands on, like you can adjust it the way you want. And
Mm.
one of the number one ways to convey an emotion through cinematography is through the motion itself of the camera. I
Mm.
mean, it's either that or you're relying on like color grading and lighting and actors on the screen or something. But in my world, like there's no actors. Your color grading better be like accurate, and it better be like normal colors. You don't want
Yeah.
it to look like a, I don't know, like a black and white movie or some sort of like the new Batman movie. You can't make it look like Oppenheimer or something. It's gotta be like strictly like accurate colors,
Yeah.
because I mean when I started out, like I tried like kind of getting a little artsy, especially with the photos, and I would constantly get people being like, hey, can you tweak this? Like, oh, the
Yeah.
yellow in this room doesn't look right. Like
Mm.
nobody wants to see like some like artsy, like oversaturated or altered color tones. So
Yeah, of course.
it has to be like just plain. Like so you have to rely on like camera motion as like your number one factor to like setting the tone of
Mm,
your videos. And
yeah,
not that like the videos are all very standard anyways. I mean, you're doing slow panning shots mostly through rooms, you're coming
yeah.
through doorways and that's pretty much it. Like it doesn't get
Yeah.
you know, you're zooming in on a kitchen sink. You're you're zooming
Pretty.
in on the fireplace. Like that's really it.
Yeah. And now a little bit about like for you, because so how do you kind of separate yourself from like shooting for work and letting your creative side out to shoot more than just the house?
Yeah, so I mean, there's definitely times where I get creative with like shooting a house, like, but it's more like, do I have extra time sort of thing, like,
Mm,
or you get to a house that's like just amazing. It's something incredible that you've never shot before, and you're like, I'm going to donate some of my extra time and energy and efforts because this house is amazing. I can't pass it up. Like,
yeah.
I've done that. Like I've done some like $2 million like artsy homes that I'm like,
Wow.
I'm gonna I'm gonna spend a little more time here because I want to try some stuff because I think at the end of the day it's gonna look epic. So
Yeah.
there's times where you do that and you do get a chance to be creative. But in the day to day, like I've set my margins for time on jobs pretty tight, so I don't give
Mm,
myself a lot of time to like play around and be creative. I get what I know I need to get, and then I get out of there because I got to go to another house. Like I'm kind of at that point where I don't have a lot of free time for that sort of thing.
yeah.
So for me, like if I want to kind of just get that creative bug, like that's where like I'll spend like my free time. I'll go to a park or I'll go for a walk around town or something. And I've been really slacking in that department in the last year or so because business has just been like so crazy. And I did get married last year, so
Oh wow.
my
Yeah, oh
wife and
yeah, I
I,
seen that.
yeah,
I seen
we're
that.
kind of
Congrats.
yeah, it's been a little shift of like focus and priorities, and so I don't obviously spend as much time by myself, and we're actually kind of getting back to some of that. We're just like spending more me time for both of us. So
Yeah.
um
Very
I've kind
important.
of yeah, like this year, like going to Delaware Water Gap just to hike the trail. I've done it several times. I did it in the snow. I've done it. I did it in the fall. I'm really looking forward to now with the spring colors coming in, like just to go out by myself and just bring my backpack with all my camera gear and just play, like just try stuff, find cool images, find new techniques, like new ways to film. Um, because that's like when you start pushing boundaries, it's funny because it can be something as unique as like when you're editing, like if you're in like the programs to edit, you have a lot of like sliders that you're just moving left or right to make your different adjustments. And when you're kind of like in this routine, you know exactly where to move that slider for each photo
Mm,
because in real estate, like you're kind of replicating the same style for every house. So
yeah.
that really doesn't change, but it can be something as simple as like, well, what happens if I just move the slider all the way to this side or all the way to that side or somewhere in between? What if I compromise? What if I find just some happy like middle ground that I've never tried before? And then
Yeah.
that's really like to me, that's where I find something unique. And I mean, my photography style, like my personal style, it's a little lost right now. Like I'm trying new things, just trying to kind of like find like where do I want to be with it
Mm,
outside of real estate because again, real estate's so like standardized. Um my angles are what is more unique to me, I think. And even that I wouldn't
mm,
say it's totally unique. Like looking at the whole industry, I don't think I'm really doing much more unique than other people are, but
yeah.
um I want to get back to like my own like colors and lighting and putting an
Nice.
attitude into my photos, but that's something I'm working on now where like I want to just go outside and spend some time by myself just taking pictures of nature,
Mm,
landscapes, architecture. I mean, I like a lot of things. Like I really did like doing a lot of like commercial stuff. I liked shooting like a lot of like gritty things. So like when I used to
mm,
shoot landscapers, that was a lot of fun to me. I loved shooting landscapers because they're dirty. There's a lot of texture there.
yeah.
There's mud. There's the grass clippings. The equipment's filthy sometimes. Like the trucks are not so clean. Like that to me is a lot of fun. Like and there's action. Like sometimes there's like dramatic action happening, like the
Mm.
mowers moving, the trimmers spinning, the leaf blowers blowing clouds of dust into the air. Like that stuff to me was like super dramatic and a lot of fun to like play around with. So I'm always happy to do like some new like commercial projects, but
Yeah.
like if there's like a construction project going on downtown, like down the street from me,
Yeah.
like I would love to get back to where I was in like 2019 when I was basically unemployed because I wasn't making any money. But I used to go out a lot
Yeah.
and just do like street photography. And so I used to like capture photos of like construction crews kicking up dust and working. And my new thing right now is I'm trying to like weasel my way into the fire department locally because I know where their like training
Oh.
facility is.
There you go.
I want to go shoot with them while they're doing like training because like
Oh,
I
that's
don't have
cool.
time to just be on call if they get called out to a regular job.
Yeah.
But like I've kind of started making connections there at the firehouse. They recognize my photography and stuff online a lot.
Oh, wow.
Um, so like I'm trying to like work myself into an opportunity to at least, even if it's volunteer, just to go down to like their training grounds to be allowed to join them just to like take pictures with like fire and water and hoses and big trucks and flashing lights, gritty uniforms
Yeah.
with a lot of texture and detail. Like I want to just shoot that kind of stuff
Yeah.
because it's different and there's like a lot happening. And that's the sort of thing where like at the end of the day when the pictures are done,
Mhm.
I'll take my iPad and I'll just sit there and I'll zoom in on the little details and I just love looking at it. Like that's fun
Wow.
to me. So that's where I'm trying to like kind of reinvigorate my passion. I just want to get back to like doing that stuff on the side for
Mm.
more for my own like creative urges, like you
Yeah.
gotta be able to like do something, make something every once in a while that you're really proud of and that's like 100% your idea.
Mm.
So that's kind of where my target is now. I mean,
Yeah.
between that and nature stuff, but
No, that's cool, and I've seen some of your work with the landscapers too, because it really is cool. It's cool to capture action, like you said, that just capturing the picture in the moment of what something is happening. And now has there been like what was the most impactful maybe photo or video that you've done in your career?
oh man. There's a couple pictures that definitely stand out to me. I mean, I wish I could just like show them on the screen. Even if I was to look for them, it would
Yeah.
take me an hour to find them in all my files. Um, there's
we c-
one picture I took of one of the landscaping guys. I don't remember who it was, but I was in. They were in like a park or a nature preserve, and they were clearing out the walking trails through the forest.
Mhm.
And it was like super early morning, like 7:30 maybe. I mean, the ground, like the dew was still on the grass and
Yeah.
everything. It was a little dark, but the sun was peeking. It was coming through the trees and everything. And I happened to capture this one photo of like, again, this wouldn't be like your commercialized style of editing. I
Yeah.
darkened the shadows heavily. I left in the highlights. So I had this photo of a guy from like far back zoomed in. So it's like this tunneled shot of like a dark forest and it's all green and dark black shadows and one giant ray of sun coming in through this pocket in the trees and the landscaper
Yep.
is like right there in the middle, like he looks so
Trimming.
eloquent, he's just
Yeah.
trimming
That's
like
a great photo. I know exactly what photo you're talking about.
yeah.
I'll see if I can find it in mine, or if you find the
I think
original
it's on
photo.
my it might be on my Instagram if we dig back deep enough if you want to like throw
Yeah,
it in your story or something, but
yeah. I'll definitely I'll throw it in the video just to show everyone what you're talking about. That is an
yeah.
amazing photo.
That one, and then another one that meant a lot to me, and there's probably a ton more. Like if I start going through my catalogs, I would probably find some more that I'm like, oh yeah. But another one that really sticks out to me is I took this really nice drone shot of Pocono Manor Resort. It's like a
Mm,
historic property. I think it was around like 100, 200 years or something. It's
yeah.
been around a long, long time. I did some projects for them for their marketing and stuff back in, I want to say 2019, maybe 2018. And that was in like May. So it was like, I guess it was like early or still like mid spring, not summer yet. But I mean, there was a lot of green, a lot of yellows, a beautiful time of day with the sun hitting the building and everything. And it looks so beautiful. And I took this epic drone shot from an angle that you would never be able to get from the ground because it was like out because their resort sits like on a cliff, so it was like way out from it. It was a beautiful shot, and then about 6 months later, the building burned down. The whole resort burned down,
Oh
and
snap.
yeah, it was a huge like historic thing when that happened because I mean it was a
Yeah.
historic
Oh
resort,
yes.
and so like I mean every fire department within like 20 miles, 30 miles was there helping.
Yeah.
It took them like days to put out that fire because it was such a big building.
Yeah.
And so I was like the last person to probably, I mean, maybe somebody else happened to get a photo with the resort in the background at some point, like
Yeah.
between in those like 6 months. But I was the last one to do a project for them before that building burnt down.
Wow.
So that was like, I mean, it's just really like meaningful to me because I was able to like capture those last memories for them. And then I happened to be,
Wow.
since I'm a local, like I went to vote for, I don't even remember which election, but like the next year I went to go vote at our local polling place, which
Yeah.
happened to be at the same fire training facility.
Mm.
And right inside the doors while I'm waiting in line to go vote, um, I just looked to my right and there's a plaque on the wall with my picture on it. And it's like a
No
plaque.
way.
I think it was from, I think Pocono Manor gave that plaque to the fire department, if I recall right. I think that's how it worked. So I think it was like to the fire department, like a big thank you for basically for them trying to help save the resort.
Yeah.
But just to see my photo on the wall in somebody else's building, like I don't see my photos and images really anywhere else other than like Facebook, social media is like I've had some of my photos in magazines. Usually they're marketed like in Philadelphia or something. Like some of the
Yeah.
big like luxurious homes I've shot, they end up like in some of those style magazines.
Mhm.
Um Man, I actually wish I actually saved like physical copies of those. I've never been given one, so I'd have to go
Yeah.
track it down. But um it's rare that I
Wow.
see my photography somewhere else without planning on seeing it
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah.
So just like I literally have a cell phone picture that I took of that plaque, and I think that picture on my
Wow.
cell phone means more to me than the actual picture I took, just because it's like that's my photo being used in a way that's kind of it's really meaningful. Like it's emotional to some people knowing
Mhm.
that that love that resort, the people that worked at that resort, and all that stuff. So that's definitely one of those like things that I think sticks with me the most.
Mm.
Um, just because like and it's still there. I've been there like a year ago. I was there again voting or something and it was I still saw it. It's still sitting there. It's probably sitting there right now. So it's like that stuff like that's pretty cool. Like I would
Yeah.
love to like have my photo on a billboard, but like I feel like that's almost too temporary. If it's on a billboard, it's like kind of whatever. It'll be gone in a week. But if it was like, anytime you see something printed of yours, like that's really epic.
Yeah, I can imagine. Especially and it like you said, it's somewhere you didn't expect to see and you're just casually gonna do what everyone else is doing is voting and then you're just like that's my photo.
I know.
That's
I was so excited. Like I'm surrounded by strangers, and I'm like, "You guys see that?" But like, nobody knows what it like. It didn't mean anything to anyone else. I was just blown away, and I knew like trying to explain to somebody else they wouldn't care, so I didn't really bother. But I immediately took a picture of it. I got so excited. I wanted to share it with everyone on
wow. If you
Facebook,
want, if you
family.
want to send me that one as well, I'll definitely put it in too. So
Yeah,
I'll have him.
yeah. I'll
I'll put
find it.
that up so they can see that too. Um, that's really cool though that that you were able to like to come across that. Um, now with photography, videography, and your business, what has been like the most challenging aspect of your journey?
Um, I don't know that anyone or everyone can relate to this, but for me, there was a high level of insecurity that I have dealt with for probably most of my life, probably before I ever got into photography, but never feeling like what I did was great. I've always downplayed myself. I've always looked at myself as like, like why would anyone want me to come photograph their house? Like
Mm.
there's a billion other photographers who are probably better than me. That was my
Mm.
biggest thing that I struggled with. Um, and that probably is what held me back the most when I started my business, when I first quit my job and I struggled to make money, I think my lack of confidence, my insecurity, and my beating myself up about what I do, um, I just was always really, really critical of myself. And it delayed me, like physically, it delayed me in a lot of ways. Like I'd go shoot something for somebody and then take weeks to deliver it, like well beyond any excuse of why it should be so delayed.
Mm.
And it was pretty much always due to me feeling like what I just did was not good enough. And I
Mm.
don't know if they're going to like it, so much so that it like crippled me to where I can't even deliver what I did.
Mm.
And that took years for me to get over. And maybe it's like I got into real estate because it felt like it was low pressure, because like how can you mess it up? You just take pictures of a house or whatever. But I mean, I look back at like the photos that I did when I first started, and I'm like I'm not sharing that anymore.
Yeah.
Like some of my oldest stuff, I'm like, I mean, the first couple of years I did it, I didn't even know how to freaking hold the camera straight. I don't know, like I didn't realize like you really should keep the camera level, like that's
Yeah.
important. So like that sort of stuff. But at the time I wasn't really beat up about that. But there was like a lot of commercial jobs I did, a lot of like commercial marketing, and some artsy creative jobs that I tried doing, and I just felt like I was never good enough. And that was my biggest issue. But if it wasn't for one of my former bosses telling me, look, number one, you got to just, even if you feel like you're lying to yourself, you got to start telling yourself that you're good enough. Start believing that what you do is good enough.
Mm.
And then the next thing is a really good rule to live by, as probably as any sort of service provider, but as a contractor in general. Trust your quality of work,
Mm.
and then shoot for about 80% of what you can do, and then um, put that other 20% into just being better at meeting your goals. Like
Mm.
I spent way too much time like stressing over like, will somebody like what I do enough that they think I deserve to get paid for what I just did? Because I was too stupid to ever collect money up front. But again, and that stems from my own insecurities, and I still probably deal with some of that today. But um if you put more emphasis on just meeting the deadline, ease up on your critiques of yourself, but just meet the deadlines.
Mm.
If you set a date with your client, which you should always set a date with your client, they should always know when to expect what you're doing for them, when you're going to be out there at the shoot, when you're going to deliver the product. You should always have those dates clear. There shouldn't be any questions. If they don't ask, it's on you. Like it's your responsibility to still make sure that it's talked about. I've
Yeah.
done jobs with people, there's a lot of different types of clients out there, and some are more experienced and professional and know what they're expecting of you. And then there's others that are like, in the world of real estate, you got a lot of new agents. There's tons of agents out there. There's new ones every day. So a lot of them that come to you may be first timers, and they don't know all the questions to ask. They don't know. They're kind of just trusting that you're the expert. You should know what you're doing.
Mm.
And it can be kind of easy to walk all over those people, but more often than not, you're walking all over yourself by not setting these guidelines, these boundaries, these deadlines.
Mm.
If you're not structuring that stuff, you're not communicating clearly about things, if you're not taking the initiative to be like, well, like, I guess they just expect me to deliver these whenever they're done.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't talk about it with them, and then a week later you're like, I don't know if I like this yet, I don't know if I want to give it to them. And then next thing you know, you're getting a message from them being like, "Hey, is everything all right? I haven't heard from you in a while. Like,
Yeah.
did it work out? Like, are the pictures ready?" Like, I struggle with that, and I feel like at times definitely struggle with it. But
Mm.
um, be comfortable telling yourself that your work is good enough. And again, focus on like maybe not 80%. I definitely think like 90 is a more reasonable thing to say, but like 90% of what you normally would do. That last 10% of effort that you think you're going to be sweating about for the next week, how about instead of doing that, you just deliver the dang photos and let the client tell you if they like them or not? Because more often than not, if they hired you, they trust you already. They already like what you do. They've seen your
Mm.
other work. So I've had to like go through this like therapy with myself many, many times of like telling myself like, no, you're good enough. They wouldn't have hit you up in the first place if they didn't trust your work. So
Exactly.
like just deliver the darn photos. If you think if you think they're already like halfway there, they're probably pretty close to what you wanted them to be anyways. So when that deadline's coming up that you need to hit, just
Yeah.
do it. Deliver what you got to deliver. If they don't like it, they'll ask for a revision. That's fine. You do a revision. It might crush your soul a little bit, but 90% of people are not going to ask for that revision. Most of them are going to be totally fine with what you give them because you're the expert, you're the
Mm.
artist, you've been doing it long enough, you have the expertise. Like at this point, there's really no excuse. So like that's what I have to tell myself a lot. And there was some unlearning I had to do because I had a lot of insecurity and um, I felt like I was beat up a little bit in my past, and I had to retell myself that I'm good enough. But
Mm.
I've gotten to a pretty good space with that now. So that was definitely my hardest thing, and I've met a few other people that are like that who have unprovoked expressed the exact same experiences and feelings that I
Yeah.
had. So I know I'm not alone in that type of category, but um I mean that's the hardest part. I think for a lot of people too, they get a little swept up in like they got to have the latest and greatest camera equipment. Like, oh, my photos
Mm.
would be better if I have this lens, if I spend 6 grand on a new setup or whatever. Like you could, or you could just take photos with what you have. Like still to this day, some of the best photos that I've taken were with like a $600 Canon Rebel T3i, and
Wow.
it was a 2 or 3 year old camera when I bought it in 2013. Like the camera was not new. Like the T5i was out, and I was like, no, I'll take the 3i because it's cheaper, and I just
Yeah.
needed
Yeah.
something that worked at the time. And like, yeah, that camera didn't have autofocus for video. It wasn't the best image quality. It was a low megapixel, whatever. But man, I took some great photos with that thing. Like everything up until because I bought my Canon R6 I bought in 2021. So everything before that, like 2020, 2019, 18, 17, 16, all those years was like a really cheap old camera. And like
Mm.
I think that's what made me so good at what I do now because I made it a priority to maximize the potential of what I currently had to work with instead of really like straining myself for this like you'll never be good enough until you get that better camera.
Yeah.
And sure, I think I did fall into that trap at times and I made those
Mm.
mistakes and it sets you back financially heavily at times. And I think people need to focus less on what money they have to spend on something to feel like they're good enough and they need to just go out there and use what they got.
Yeah.
Cell phones are not always the answer though. Don't always think if you show up to a job and they're paying like hundreds of dollars and you're like, all right, I'm gonna just whip out my phone now and we're gonna get started, they're gonna be like, I'll take my refund now and leave.
Wow, I can only imagine like what could go through their head is like, oh, I hired this guy and he's gonna come and go, okay, here we go, guys. I'm gonna
Yeah.
take them.
Like obviously there's some like expertise involved. Like, yeah, you can use a phone. You can shoot in like a pro mode and
Yeah.
still edit it correctly and all that stuff. But like I mean, if a client sees you using a phone for something, they're gonna be like, "Why didn't I just do this myself?" So,
That's
so
true. That's true.
yeah,
But thank you for elaborating and like letting us know like what has been the most challenging, but also giving the advice of like just doing it. Give those pictures. Just send the pictures.
yeah, that was
Um,
yeah,
but for one, I could definitely say you are very, very good at what you do. Your photographs are amazing, and it's awesome, right? Too, because before like when we book guests and everything, I tend to like talk to my mother-in-law and stuff, and we just like chit chat. I'm like, oh look, I got this cool person. I'm gonna be talking to this person, and I was talking to her about you, and I was like, oh, he does amazing photography, amazing work, And I started showing the picture. She's like, I want to go buy the house now. Like, I want that house. The way he just shot it looks amazing. So your work is very, very, like, very amazing. So
Oh,
I want
thank
to
you.
let you know that.
I
Now,
appreciate it.
of course. Now what is the best part of it all, or what makes it all more meaningful to you? What's that?
Um, oh, that's a tough one. I mean, there's a couple elements that, again, like seeing my stuff printed, knowing
Yeah.
that like I never asked for my photos to end up in a magazine, and I know there's actual like monetary motivation for like an agent to advertise. They're trying to sell a house. Like, I shot this like $2.4 million home up in Buck Hill. It was it's like in very unique architectural design. It was actually designed by um uh Frank Lloyd Wright. He's like a famous artist or whatever. He does architecture. One of his like students or assistants or something was the one who designed this house. It's a little dated. It looks like 1970s type structure, like architecture, but it's an incredible home.
Mm,
It was owned by like a duchess from the UK, and like this was her like summer home or something. But
yeah.
I mean, there was beautiful paintings in there and stuff. But um, to know that like the client felt like they had taken some other pictures or had a second photographer that did some interior stuff for them, but to know that my pictures specifically were good enough for them to publish in like a magazine from Philadelphia that shows
Mm,
like luxury homes for sale, to like see my photos and something like that is like mind blowing to me, especially when it's like the cover photo. Like there will be an article written and
wow.
like my picture is like the cover of it and stuff, so that's always
Wow.
exciting. I mean, sometimes like so like back when I was doing more street photography and stuff, I went to the X Games one time, right? And
Mm,
I got this incredible close up of Leticia Buffoni. She's a Brazilian skateboarder. She's probably still one of the most popular female athletes in the X Games world, right? And I was super obsessed with the action sports industry. And I happened to have a really front row seat, and I had my cameras, and I got this like perfect shot of her. She looked like this goddess, like getting ready to drop in skating. And like that photo was so freaking epic. I posted it, got like maybe like 30 likes on it, and I was like, dang, like I know this photo's good.
yeah.
And then I was really validated when I saw that her fan pages started reposting the picture, and sure, they weren't giving me credit, which sucks, but like, yeah, my watermark was on it. Thank God I had my watermark on it. Nowadays I don't
Oh,
even watermark my own images because of homes, like I just don't. But
yeah.
like I had my watermark on it, so like yeah, like sure, maybe some people found me because of that. But to me, it was just really like it was
Wow.
kind of like, oh wow, like I'm good enough that people are gonna like steal my photos. Like that to me was exciting because like I anyone can take a photo and like it's whatever, but there was something about the image that I had, like the way the light was hitting her. She had like her hands up, like in her hair, her fingers in her hair. She was like getting ready to drop in for her run for the street league, or not street league, but whatever the street skateboarding competition is.
Mhm.
And there's like an X Games, like uh one of the guys with like the big like televised cameras there, like
Yeah.
he's filming the event for live TV. And like so there's like some of this drama of like the staff behind her, like they're ready. There's some of the other skaters, I think, in the background of that shot. There's people in the rest of the crowd behind her because she's in the corner, so I'm looking across, and like
Wow.
I'm zoomed in and you see her face is just focused, and she's just doing her last minute adjustment before she drops in. So like that shot to me like just conveyed a lot of emotion, and like that was definitely one of those things where it's just like one of the coolest things that I've done that made me like feel so good about what I do. Like
Wow.
I wish I got paid for
Of
that.
course. If you have that picture as well too, if you want to send that one too,
Yeah,
of course I'll put that one up too.
it's deep
I
in the
just
archive.
could not. Yeah, no problem. Um, that's awesome, and it's but at least you, like you said, at least you had your watermark on there, even though maybe some people did, but it's still cool that people are using your photo to show everybody else. Um, but so I have one last question I tend to ask everybody that comes on. And then one more afterwards. But so what advice would you give to someone wanting to start photography, videography, or someone want to expand or start a business or yeah, yeah, so all that.
Okay. Yeah, I got you. So, I mean, there's multiple steps that have to be put into place to successfully do it as a business. Number one, start with business itself. Like, you need to learn about business systems. You need to learn about putting in a structure and a model that is going to work for the industry that you want to be in.
Mm,
Like I thought I was going to be a photographer, and my original website just had like services, and it was like real estate, and I had a picture of a house that I took, of some random house that I had no business taking pictures of. It wasn't mine, it wasn't somebody I was working with. Pictures of construction workers, and I was like commercial. Like I just had like all these really like lofty descriptions of what I do. No set
mm,
pricing, no way to order. They just had to email me or call me. That was it. Like, so you need to like look into like really like where do you want to be? What are other people that are already doing what you want to do? What are they doing? Like, most real estate photographers have an online ordering platform. Most of them all use the same company that structures that, like shopping cart and scheduling software and all that stuff. So find the systems that work for that industry that other people are using. You need to adapt to that. You should also be learning about business. You need to learn about the art of like networking and crafting a deal, making relationships with people, building a trusting relationship that's going to turn into work. Repetitive work is always great. Finding an industry or a niche where you can pretty much like feel confident that you're going to have more work coming. Um, Even like portrait work, like you may think like, oh, portraits, like I'll never hear from that person again. And that may be true, but
mm,
you can bet if they liked what you did, if you were easy to work with, the next time they see somebody on Facebook asking for a recommended photographer, they're going to put your name in there. So
mm,
it's good to like, know how to build a business that people want to work with. And I don't really know like one source to find all the answers for that. I was definitely blessed with opportunities to be side by side with some incredible business people that taught me a lot. And so I learned a lot of that stuff myself. So, like I said, if I had the opportunity to go speak to my younger self or to go to a school full of like photography students that want to like do photography as a business, like I'm going to tell them, hey, like photography classes are great. You can learn a lot of this online, just so you know. So save yourself some money. But you need to know business, and then you need to set for yourself a series of goals, and
mm,
you need to reverse engineer your ultimate goal. So I looked at, number one, it's not about how many photos can I take or how many houses can I shoot a year. I look at, what do I need to survive? How much money do I want to make? How much money do I need to pay my bills? That's always my starting ground, right? Like start with your minimal. Then you can also shoot for like what's your fun goal? Like where do you want to be? What's your dream come true? How much money can I make? And then you need to break that down. Okay, well, if I want to make $100,000 in a year shooting real estate, what do I need to do? Well, $100,000 a year, 52 weeks in a year, you basically need to make about 2 grand a week. What does that mean? You need to, if your average sale after doing a couple, you start to figure that out. If your average sale is like 150 or 200, say it's 200, then you need to shoot 10 homes in a week to make $200 per home. That makes 2 grand. 2 grand a week. You do that consistently, you'll make $100,000 a year. How do you get to shoot 10 homes a week? You need to figure out, well, how many clients do I need to make that happen?
mm,
Most clients may have one house a week. I'd say actually the majority of clients are going to have maybe one house a month, because like 9% or like 1% of realtors probably do 90% of the transactions, right? Like the majority of them are more passive. So you should be building a reputation with, those smaller clients that may only have one or two per month, or maybe one a week. And then you also want to, shoot for those bigger clients that are, brokerages that are going to have like multiple per week every week. And it's going to take time. You got to build a reputation. You got to be someone they can trust. Trust is something you're going to have to work towards, usually with making face-to-face connections. I I don't think any sale I've made in my industry that I personally made without somebody recommending someone to me, I don't think I've ever done it without like really at least a face to face, like a handshake, a conversation, um, something to make that humanized connection. So when you start to learn like, okay, the steps that it's going to take to reach that goal, you got to build that daily repetition, and you got to be disciplined enough to keep doing it if you want to see the end goal. Like I made whatever I was making over 40,000 this last year. I'm totally open
Wow.
with my finances, by the way. I have no problem
You're
sharing
good.
that stuff because I think being honest and real about it is the best policy for me. So this year I'm projected to make about 50% more,
Wow.
and that's pretty crazy. But you have to remember, like the first year I did this, I made about 10,000. The second year
Mm.
it was almost 20,000. The next year was 30,000, and then I quit my job. I didn't just quit my job and be like, okay, see you guys, I'm going to go try to be a real estate photographer. I tried that. I tried to see you guys, I'm going to be a commercial photographer, and had to come crying back to my family and stuff. So,
Yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
didn't work out that first time. So I definitely don't recommend like you can't just quit your job and think you're just going to like find the keys to success right away. Like you got to structure it, and you got to be like meticulous about how you do it. That's if you want longevity, if you want to really do what you're passionate about and make it like work for you as your career, you have to like build that structure, and you have to be comfortable with looking at the details, comfortable telling yourself you're going to work a lot, comfortable with saying like, you're going to have to give up some expenses, you're going to have to give up a lot of free time.
Mm.
um you have to make some sacrifices. But I mean, I was working 90 hours a week on average, and I started dating and met my wife, and we dated for about 3 years, and then, well, about 2 years, got engaged, and then got married. And in the meantime, I've been growing this business. I had 3 jobs, or no, I still had 2 jobs at least, when I met her. And like, so there's still time to like socialize, but I was getting 6 hours of sleep a night because I was always working. But you don't have to sacrifice everything. It's just sleep.
Oh, awesome, man. Wow, really appreciate that. Um, Thank you so much for taking the time for coming on here to give background about you, about your business, about photography, videography. Thank you for all of that. Now, do you want to share to let everyone know where they can find you, all your socials? I'll be sure to put all your ads, all your links, your website, everything will be in the description, the show notes, everything. But you want to just you share them where they can find you?
Yeah. So I mean, my business is called Beyond Limits Productions. You can find it on basically every social media platform: Instagram, TikTok, like LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. I'm probably going to repeat myself if I try and name any more. But it's all Beyond Limits Productions. TikTok is actually BLP Drone. But yeah, BLP is my thing. Um, you can add me on Facebook. I don't know. Like, I don't care. It's yeah. I'm pretty like open with the things I want to be open with. So, um, yeah, I'm happy to help anyone who's interested. Anyone who has any like questions or wants advice, yeah, like feel free to reach out, and I'm happy to like help steer you in the right direction if you're stuck at some part of your, you want to get out of your job but you don't know how you're going to do it, or you want to move out of your home, or you want to get your own apartment, but you also want to be a photographer but you don't know how you're going to do both and survive. Like, I'm happy to like, you know, be real with you about what you got to do, and actually help you kind of plan it out and figure it out how to make it happen.
Awesome. Yeah. So, like I said, I'll be sure to put all your information below. So, you guys, like you said, if you want to reach out, if any questions, please feel free to. Jared, once again, thank you for coming on and just finding the time to come on here and talk.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great to do this. First time doing it, so.
Awesome. Awesome. Wow. Appreciate it. Thank you everyone for listening and tuning in. I hope you guys love the episode. We'll see you guys back here next week with another one. And just thank you once again, Jared.
Thanks.